Mr. Abdul Karim. He is the president of FORAI. It's an organization of overseas manpower exporters, a very dedicated businessman. To felicitate Mr. Sri Iyer, about whom my friend Mr. Venkatesh will speak. He will introduce you later. I request Mr. Karim Bhai to come and felicitate Mr. Sri Iyer. It is Sri's book which we are going to release at the hands of Dr. Swami. Now, with your permission, I will felicitate Dr. Swami. He's a remarkable person. On the one hand, you have Mr. Gaikwad, that MP of Shiv Sena, who wants to travel business class in a plane where there is no business class. And still is roaming about, beating up people, abusing them and all that. On the other hand, you have Dr. Swami, who for the past several decades have been serving the nation in the most selfless manner. If at all there is an MP, an ideal MP, that is Dr. Swami. On behalf of all of you, he has fought the 2G spectrum scam and the case against Jayalalitha and Shashikala for 21 long years. Lord Ram went to forest for 14 years, but he continued for 21 years, ensured both have gone to the jail. On behalf of all of you, I felicitate. I now request Mr. M.R. Venkatesh. He's a chartered accountant, lawyer, having offices all over the world, and he appears very regularly on Times Now. And thanks to Arnav Goswami, he never got a chance to speak in Times Now. But anyway, yeah, now he can. So I request M.R. to give a brief introduction about Mr. Sri Iyer. Mr. Venkatesh.
Balakrishnan, Dr. Swami, dignitaries on the dais, off the dais. It's a great pleasure to introduce the author of this book, Sri Iyer. I think what Sri Iyer has done has to render a human service, a signal service to the cause of the country and the fight against corruption. It's not easy to take on organized crimes and organized criminals. What Sri Iyer has done is that it is never spoken of in the corruption circles. The politicians are corrupt, but what about the media? Nobody asks this question. And I think we all have to thank Sri Iyer for putting the right question and asking the right question, and he has provided us the answer. What type of skullduggery, if I may use the word, is being practiced not by some mafia, not by some gang lord, but by what is called as the those who are supposed to be at the vanguard of democracy. The fourth pillar of democracy, which prides itself in pointing out fingers at others, and when the burqa is let down, what you find is something shocking. And the best encomium was paid not by me, not by Dr. Swami, not by anybody else, but by a man sitting 6,000 kilometers away in London. Now this, I think Mumbaikars may understand very well. Some 30-40 years back when I was a student, somebody asked Mithun Chakravarti how does it feel to be a poor man's Amitabh Bachchan? So he said, I have no problems in being poor man's Amitabh Bachchan. Go and ask Govinda, he is called poor man's Mithun Chakravarti. So now, poor Shri Iyer is now being quoted by this gentleman who has fled from India and from Bangalore more specifically, and he is sitting in London and he is telling NDTV how much of a fraud you are, how much of a looter you are. So this is what Shri Iyer has done, that amongst people he is now being seen as a benchmark, a torchbearer of actually bringing out into the open the scams that were always whispered in the bylanes of Latin's Delhi. But it is now spoken of. People will now know as to what this whole channel stands for. And once the next layer of who funds them and who drives them comes out, I think that will be the best possible thing that will have. I'm sure Shri Iyer will be writing a sequel to this. I hope Shri Iyer you are listening. And this is only a trailer of a horrible movie, and I'm sure that the main picture baki hai, and Shri Iyer will definitely bring out the best out of it. And thank you, Shri Iyer, for educating most of us who are not in the know about these things. And I would personally also thank him, because as a chartered accountant, you know, sometimes we take certain figures for granted. The biggest lesson for us was never to take any figure for granted. And Shri Iyer has taught me this lesson, that never take a balance sheet for granted, especially that of a media house. Thank you.
I now request Shri to speak a few words as to what prompted him to write this book and why NDTV, and also the fact that the media is not present here, is not covering this event. It is very clear as to what a huge racket the media industry has become. Many of my friends in the media told me we are directed by our management not to cover this event because it involves a fellow media house. So this shows Teri Bhi Chup, Meri Bhi Chup. 99% of the media in this country is sold out. It's paid news. Unless you pay money, your news does not come. Okay. So that's the reason why we don't have the media, but we don't care a damn. We have the social media on our side. We have the people on our side. I'm certain that Swami and this message, Sri and this message will go far, and the day will come when Chidambaram and company will be definitely be arrested. Over to Sri.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, MRV, and thanks for your introduction, Bala. Respected senior BJP leader and Member of Parliament, Dr. Subramaniam Swami, Sri Balakrishnan of Deshbhakt Andolan, Dr. Avisha Kulkarni of Deshbhakt Andolan, National General Secretary of VHS, Sri Jagdish Ji, President of VHS Maharashtra, Sri Ajay Sankhya Ji, members of VHS and dear friends. When we were singing Vande Mataram, I was reminded of the song that we used to sing when I was going to primary school. And this was written by Mayavaram Vishwanatha Shastri, and he wrote it in Sanskrit. And the song goes, Jayati Jayati Bharata Mata. It's a beautiful song. I hope next time maybe you can sing it for variety. So the reason I brought this up is what you see of Tamil Nadu today is not what it was before. In fact, Srinivas Iyengar, who is down from deep south in Tamil Nadu, he's the one who wrote in Telugu a song which has been adopted by the unified state of Andhra Pradesh as their state song. It's called Ma Telugu Talliki Mallepu Danda. You see, so this thing about being part of this great country was there from a very, very long time. What we are seeing now is a temporary phase, and I'm very, very confident that we will return back to our roots in Tamil Nadu. Sorry for that segue. A quick introduction about myself. I'm an inventor with over 37 patents. I'm based in the Silicon Valley. I don't know where you are from California, but today seems to be the day when a lot of people from California are here. I think we've all bitten the India bug. We want to do something for our Janmabhoomi. The site I edit is called P Gurus, and in P Gurus we provide a window to India for all the global Indians We cover 4 aspects of India. We cover its politics, we cover its culture, we cover its investment, and it's also the business aspects. I was going to say that we are going to see more of people like me who will be coming in and wanting to do something for our beloved Bharat Mata, because we all feel now that many of us have spent half of our life here, half of our life abroad, and we want to do something for our Janmabhoomi as well as for our Karmabhoomi. And there's nothing wrong in wishing the best for both these countries. As managing editor of P Gurus, while publishing a series of frauds, tax violations, siphoning of money committed by India's premier TV channel NDTV, an idea struck me as to why not put this out in a book form, simplify the text, because some of our articles were fairly in-depth and perhaps a little difficult to understand for the common person. So I decided that maybe the data that I had put out on the site should be collated and construed in the way of a book which explains what this premier TV channel has done. And in my opinion, what this channel did became some sort of a bookmark for the rest of the media networks to follow. So we agree that 99% is sold. Perhaps the genesis of this was in the way NDTV got formed. In the book, I try to ask 3 important questions. The first question is, NDTV practically forced Rupert Murdoch's Star Networks to invest $20 million in NDTV for 5 years running. And what was the reason for that? The interesting thing was, this deal was signed in the house of the then Prime Minister, Indra Kumar Gujral, 1997. Again, 25 years after NDTV was founded, in 2013, the Silver Jubilee anniversary function was held in Rashtrapati Bhavan. Why can't they find some other place? This is a message that NDTV is putting out, that we can do whatever we want with this bureaucracy here. The second question that I asked is, in 2007, a multinational conglomerate called General Electric, which owned NBC Universal, a television station in the United States, and Universal Studios, which is a very big studio company, they invested $150 million into a shell company. The shell company had 0 employees, 0 revenues, and 0 assets. And in a clever plan of layering the money from company 1 to company 2 in over a period of time through various countries, the money ended up in India at NDTV, but they managed to avoid paying taxes. Today, the Income Tax Department has levied a fine of 525 crores on NDTV because they said this whole transaction was a sham. This Monday, NDTV had appealed the ruling and they were going to go to Supreme Court, but for some reason their lawyer was sick, so they're going to be back there on the 10th of April. So if you read this book today, it kind of sets the scene for you to see what is going to evolve in the next few days and weeks to come. And I'm very confident that the law is going to do its job, and that you're going to find some of the NDTV promoters being fined for money laundering, tax evasion, stock manipulation, and so on. There are 45,000 common stockholders, shareholders in NDTV. And the amount of dividends that have been paid by this company is almost non-existent. Again, this is described in the book as to how much money they compensated for themselves and how little they paid by way of taxes or dividends. Now, the third biggest question, to me, I'm still mystified as to why this is. Even today, the stock of NDTV is at around 70 rupees a share. They've been making losses year after year after year after year. So who is really paying the salaries? There is no money coming from the stocks. So this is a question that I really don't know the answer to, but I'm hoping that in the course of investigation, this answer also will be revealed. So I hope you all will read the book. And one request from me, after you've read the book, whatever you think, positive or bad, negative reviews, I'd like you to go to Amazon.in, look for my name, Sri Iyer, and the book will be there, and you can write a review there as to what you felt was there in the book that you liked and what you didn't like. The reason is these days social media is a platform to try and promote the product, and when people say that, okay, the 100 people have reviewed it, that kind of helps it find traction. Normally, you know, media would have covered this event, but unfortunately, I'm consistently seeing this is the second place where we are seeing zero media presence. But we are covered well in social media, and you know, I'm getting some help from some unexpected quarters, and so that helps. My sincere thanks to Deshbhakt Andolan and Sri Balakrishnan and VHS National Secretary Sri Jagdish Shetty and other office bearers of VHS who made this event possible. Now, I'm going to talk about the economist, Dr. Subramanian Swamy. We know all his avatars, right? I mean, we know him as an activist, he as a politician, as a member of Rajya Sabha. I would like to cast a bit of a spotlight on his accomplishments as an economist, what he has done for the world at large. Some of you may have read about his paper, which was in index number theory. So why is this paper significant? It's a foundational paper for those people who are looking at the macroeconomic picture of a place. So you can think of, you know, who sets the monetary policy. Like in India, it's the Reserve Bank. In United States, it's the Federal Reserve. They are the ones who set the monetary policy. And if you think about EU, European Union, you have an interesting situation there. You have many countries, they all have the same monetary unit, but each one follows its own fiscal policy. I mean, if there was anything that was, you know, the disaster in the making, this is it. I don't know if it is true or not, but I can imagine somebody borrowing money from Germany and then taking it and investing it in Greece and making the money off of just the difference in interest rates. I'm not sure it's happening or not, but I'm just saying. So but the EU, when it models all its economics, the macroeconomics, they use Dr. Swamy's index number theory papers extensively. I've written about this in P Gurus. I know it's a little bit hard to understand. It was hard to understand for me too when I wrote about it. But it is important that he had contributed such a significant thing about macroeconomics to this society. I'll give you some examples of the practical applications of this. Supposing you have a dozen oranges and you have a kilo of grapes. See, the entities are different. You don't buy a dozen grapes. And nor do you buy 1 kilo of oranges. Typically we buy, you know, dozen oranges. Now, how do you assign weights to this so that when you compute the overall contribution of such disparate entities, what is the procedure for that? That's what his index number theory solves. The other thing that it tries to answer is, supposing I give 10,000 rupees to a rich man, how is he going to spend that? And the same way, supposing I give the same 10,000 rupees to a poor man, how is he going to spend that? How do you, see, economics is a very, very complex area, and you have to be able to quantify it to the extent possible so that when you model it, you can change some variables and say, okay, this is the cause, this is the effect, and therefore we shall do that. I would like to also talk about one other paper that Dr. Swamy authored in 2006. The paper was titled Financial System Constraints in China and India, a Comparative Perspective, in which he predicts that a financial crisis is imminent in China due to its banking sector, and in India it will be due to the fiscal budgetary system. This was 2006, 11 years now. So I'll tell you what's happening. A report in Bloomberg in April 2016 states that Chinese banks have 1.3 trillion worth loans that are all risky, and that is close to 1/6 of their GDP. All these loans have been given out. You see these dead cities in the middle of nowhere in China, and they really don't know what to do with it. They just built it up thinking that they'll be able to manufacture for the whole world, but they just don't know what to do with it. As far as India is concerned, India's fiscal budgetary deficit has now reached 94% of the budget estimated, according to the figures I have from December 2016 article in Economic Times. 94%. Fiscal deficit is the gap between what the government earns as revenues and what it spends. You see, if we are in our house, we always spend less than what we earn because we're going to save a little bit. But the government doesn't do that. It spends more than it earns. And it's been going on for a long time. And in the recent budget speech, the finance minister said that we have now attained the deficit is at 3.5% of the GDP for the fiscal 2016-17. But what the budget doesn't say is how can the government make up this shortfall? Now, if you do some research on how countries have filled out the fiscal deficit, they resort to 5 different things, and I'll list them really quickly. We can cut down the subsidies, we can reform tax structures, we can improve the profit generated by public sector undertakings, we can recover black money, or you can have austerity in government spending. Now, cast your mind back to all the talks that Dr. Swami has given in the past so many years. Of these 5 things, which is the one thing that can be done without upsetting anything? Recovering black money, right? So this is something that's really, really obvious, but somehow we really need to get that black money, not inside India. That inside India is only a small portion. What is locked abroad? You have to make that attempt to bring that back in. Like I said, economics is a complex business, and when you have so many variables to play with, it can be quite tricky. And I'm happy to say that we have amongst us a man who can tackle this complex problem. Thank you, Mumbai, for all your support, and I hope to be back here soon. But now I give you Dr. Subramanian Swami.
Before Dr. Saab speaks, I request Dr. Swami to release the book NDTV Frauds, and also there is another book, Fact, about the facts and truth about the Ram Janambhoomi, and God willing we will have a beautiful temple of Lord Ram in this year itself. Thanks to Swami and his efforts. बोलो जय श्री राम। I now request Dr. Swami to speak on the state of the nation, a reality check. We are going through extremely grim periods. You find in Kashmir, people are throwing stones at the Indian army who are trying to track down the terrorists. It's a matter of shame. Slogans, Meri Jaan, Teri Jaan, Pakistan, Pakistan are being sung by people over here. I really wish that Prime Minister Modi will appoint Dr. Swami as a defense minister. I assure you in 48 hours, all these nonsense slogans in Kashmir will stop. All anti-nationals will be removed from here and sent back to Pakistan. Over to you, Dr. Swami. Thank you.